the rules have been suspended to allow for immediate consideration of the bill. There are amendments pending. Senator Bida is offering amendment number 1, and amendment number 1 is available on the chamber automated system.
Question before the Senate is on the adoption of the Bida amendment number 1 to House Bill 4467. Senator Bida.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, colleagues, for your attention. I'm offering this amendment. It would prohibit the housing of Michigan Department. It would prohibit the housing of Michigan Department of Corrections inmates at the former Michigan Youth Correctional Facility. We know that the facility is privately owned by the GEO Group, and they plan to send hundreds of prisoners from other states, such as Vermont, to this facility as early as next summer. What my amendment would do is it would prohibit the movement of prisoners that are currently in Michigan prisons to this privately owned facility. I ask for your support and ask for yeas and nays on this as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Bida. We will put the yeas and nays on the board after the comments. Senator Casperson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of this amendment. I would just simply say that as this process moves forward with this particular issue, if the intentions are sincere, this amendment does nothing against the intentions of moving forward with this process, this project and this bill. If the intentions are not sincere, then the voting against the amendment seems to be that there's a different signal here. And so I ask that my colleagues would really check this amendment out and make this process and this offering a sincere offering, because the whole concept behind this thing is they're bringing in outside prisoners. I rise because I have many correction facilities in my district. It will have a large impact on my communities, and I want this community to also be able to prosper from this, or at least have some activity. But at the same time, let's be honest about our intentions, and I think this amendment gets to the heart of that, and that's why I rise in support. Thank you.
Who was that?
Thank you, Senator Casperson. Senator Horn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of this amendment. I believe that the intent is very sincere. In chairing the Economic Development Committee, I do want to see jobs that are grown all over the state. My real concern is in the issue of liability for the state of Michigan. We know that the state of Michigan is indemnified from liability regarding this privately owned facility dealing with out-of-state prisoners. But it's my understanding there are prisoners coming from all levels. It could come from all levels, from level 1 to level 5 as we judge them here in the state of Michigan. They're all housed in the same facility, which is unusual for the state of Michigan. And if I were the state of Vermont, Mr. President, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't send us the kindest, gentlest prisoners, and then keep the hardest to serve in the state of Vermont. If we don't pass this amendment and we allow Michigan prisoners to be put in this prison where we would normally segregate them from different populations at different levels, what kind of liability does the state of Michigan take on at that point? These are our prisoners. There are citizens and residents. That is my concern. And again, I ask for support. Ask to support this amendment.
Thank you, Senator Horn. Senator Boer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today to urge a no vote on this amendment. This whole discussion is basically a distraction to the real content of this bill. Currently, a private prison facility in Michigan can already take Michigan prisoners. This facility in Lake County, particularly in Baldwin, was built for the highest level of prisoners. But we instituted an artificial cap on the level of prisoners that we can take. This bill removes that subjective cap that allowed for the private contracts to work. I urge my colleagues to not be distracted by this amendment and vote no on it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Boer. Senator Prose.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the opportunity to rise in opposition to this particular amendment. And I recognize that the good senator from the 9th District is right to ask the question about what it is that we're doing, Mr. President, as it relates to private prisons versus not private prisons. But the senator from the 35th District just rose in opposition and spoke to the fact that this is a private business with a private facility in Lake County with a bunch of folks who are looking for jobs, who would be trained and prepared to provide the service that is necessary to house these prisoners from another state where, again, I'll remind our colleagues in the chamber here that this is a private business engaged in a private contract to bring in prisoners from another state. This isn't a discussion by any stretch of the imagination of whether or not we have private prisons in Michigan or not. We have one here already, and it's a private business. It's a private business that's trying to keep its doors open and employ folks from that particular county. I don't think it is right for us as a Senate to stand in the way of that discussion and allow them to somehow have to tie the hands of the future of that really, I think, worthy discussion. I think the senator from the 9th District is right to say, what do we do about private prisons in the future? Well, let's discuss that. Let's talk about our cost per prisoner in the state of Michigan. Let's talk about how it is that we save money in our corrections budget. Let's talk about whether or not that's a worthwhile endeavor. But this is not the appropriate place to do it. Folks, this is not the appropriate amendment to do this in. I want that debate. I think we should have that debate. I think we should discuss whether or not this makes sense. But in the meantime, let's allow this private industry to operate in a county that desperately needs to employ its people. With a private business that's in the middle of a contract or seeking a contract with another state to house prisoners. I rise in opposition because I think this is a debate to be had later. This amendment is a worthwhile amendment at a later date to talk about, but today I ask for its defeat. I ask that my comments be concluded in the journal. Thank you, Mr. President.
If I could ask that the noise level be brought down in the chamber, please. Need the noise level brought down as the debate continues. Thank you. Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too rise in opposition to this amendment. 10 years ago, the prison in Baldwin was closed by the state of Michigan removing a contract. In fact, they broke a contract that they had with the GEO group. I represented the area. Now, the GEO group came to Michigan at the request of Michigan to build a facility. At that time, they had, I think, $36 million into the facility. The state broke the contract. We were able to get legislation done, which was the precursor to this bill, to allow some out-of-state prisoners to be brought in to be in this facility. Since then, they've added over $100 million of improvements to this. Now, I agree with Senator Prose that we should have the discussion, but this bill, this amendment at this time is not the time to have it. I think that that is a larger discussion for another day. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hansen. The question, Senator Bita has moved the yeas and nays. All those in favor of voting the yeas and nays will vote aye. Those opposed will vote nay. Would Secretary please open the board? Secretary, close the board and announce the vote.
On the yeas and nays for the Beta Amendment number 1, there are 13 aye votes.
That is a sufficient number. Yeas and nays are ordered. Question before the Senate is on the adoption of the Beta Amendment number 1 to House Bill 4467. All those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote nay. Will Secretary please open the board?
We have 5 now.
Secretary will announce the vote.
Mr. President, on adoption of the Beta Amendment number 1, there are 19 aye votes, 18 nay votes, and 1 excused.
That is an insufficient number. The amendment is defeated.